Well, my next guest was a fan favorite at the Freedom Summit in Iowa a week ago with the Republican presidential candidates, possibles. Byron Rourke said her remarks stood apart in new and appealing ways, that people warmed to her message. Some said she gave, quote, the perfect speech. So is Carly Fiorina the dark horse in this GOP race? Carly Fiorina is the former CEO of Hewlett-Packard, and she is with me now. Great to see you tonight. And so you got rave reviews after your appearance there, and they said, wow, it's somebody we hadn't considered. It's a woman. The GOP field, it's like Sarah Palin, and that was it. And then you popped up. What are your chances?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. But it is something that I'm giving very serious consideration to. And you know, Megan, I think there are a lot of people out there who know that politics is desperately important, but who also feel as though politicians stopped talking to them a long time ago, and who believe, as I do, that our federal government really needs fundamental reform now, and that perhaps citizens and leaders can make that happen.
What do you make of, in this world, if you were to get this nomination, you'd probably be going up, some believe, potentially against Hillary Clinton. And she goes out there and says, look, I've been Secretary of State, I've been First Lady, I've been a U.S. Senator, and says something to the effect of, I've traveled more miles than any Secretary of State. And you had an interesting retort.
Well, what I said is, like Mrs. Clinton, I too have traveled hundreds of thousands of miles. But flying and traveling is an activity. It's not an accomplishment. And unfortunately, she didn't accomplish anything as Secretary of State. And unlike Mrs. Clinton, I know that there's a huge difference between terrorists purposely attacking our embassy in Libya on the anniversary of September 11th, murdering an ambassador and 3 other Americans, and a demonstration goes bad. And here we have only 1 person arrested more than a year later, and it sends a signal to every terrorist around this world and all of our enemies, which is that we're weak and it's open season.
Now, your potential problem is name recognition. Even though you're extremely well known in business circles and have accomplished a lot, when you look at the polls on name recognition, you're down towards the bottom, and you're getting a late start if you're starting now and if you're going to go for it. How would you turn that around?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure it's a late start. I think many candidates are at the point now where we're starting to assess political support, financial support, build a team. I am doing all those things as well. But certainly my name recognition is not what the other candidates is, because I haven't been in politics my whole life. The way you deal with that is to get out and meet people. Go to Iowa, to go to New Hampshire, to go to the early states, and make sure that people understand what you believe in and who you are and what you want to accomplish. And so as I continue to consider this, that's what I'm going to continue to do.
A lot of folks have mentioned you as a potential darling vice presidential candidate because you would bring diversity to the ticket, and both, in terms of your business experience and obviously your gender. But if you wound up being tapped by somebody for a vice presidential role, would any of these people who are potentially vying for the top spot be acceptable to you? In other words, would you run with any of these folks, including Sarah Palin, who I just mentioned?
Well, first of all, I don't think you run for the vice presidency. There's only one job you can run for, and that's the presidency. But secondly, I think one of the things that we should be grateful for is that we have a broad, well-qualified slate of candidates that are considering this. And I think that's a very good thing, because I think we must win in 2016. I think our country is at a point where we need to make serious changes. I don't think this country can endure 4 years of Hillary Clinton or Elizabeth Warren. And so I think primary voters, with whom this decision is placed, primary voters need to look at the field very carefully and very seriously consider all of the candidates.
It'd be very interesting to hear your messaging, which we've heard already in some of your stump speeches, but in a debate on things like equal pay and things. I mean, it's very difficult sometimes for these Republican men to go up against a woman and make these arguments. It's much different when you have a CEO, female CEO like you, who's lived it. Carly, great to see you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me, Megan. Great to be with you.